All right, welcome back to the Bachelor Life Coach podcast. I'm your host, certified coach Lynn Grogan. And today we're going to be talking about and coaching on season 24, episode 7 of The Bachelor. And with me today, I have Felicia Broccolo, certified life coach. Felicia, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, Lynn. Super excited to be here. I have loved The Bachelor for a long time and currently traveling, so I wasn't watching it, but this podcast got me sucked right back in. So I'm very, very excited about it. I am a certified life and weight loss coach, and I coach active people who want to stop overeating and get their dream body. So, like you guys were talking about previously in one of the episodes about how we eat to just not feel our feelings, we drink to not feel our feelings. That is what I coach on, and I help people live their authentic life and get a body that they love without distracting themselves all the time.
Yes, amazing. And I think where I always had an affinity for you, Felicia, is that we both are nomadic and travel full time. So where are you today?
So, super funny that it lined up with this episode. I'm in Colombia right now, and I'm going to Lima, Peru tomorrow. Isn't that
What?
so funny?
What?
Yeah,
Had that been months earlier, you would have been saw Peter on the street and be like, hey, you remember how you had that moment with Kelly? Now you're having a moment with Felicia. Ditch these girls. Come with me.
that's right. And I'm super excited to try that goo stuff that he was eating. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, how does someone get this in their mouth immediately?
Yeah, I have no idea what it is, but I'm going to find the Peter goo on the streets of Lima, Peru, and
I,
I'll let you know.
Felicia, that sounds so nasty. Peter goo. That could go so many ways. And this is not an explicit podcast.
Wow.
Anyway.
Wow. All
I mean,
right.
fantasy suite. Never mind. I'm gonna stop now.
It's just
PG.
too real. That was just like way too real.
That's too real. And you
It
tell.
was way too real.
Okay, I need you to tell me in explicit detail about interviewing to be on the show.
Yeah, so it just makes me really sad watching this whole season because that should be me there
Yeah.
with Peter. I'm not going to go any farther back to my last comment, but should be me. I applied for this season of The Bachelor before we even knew that Pilot Pete was going to be The Bachelor and loved to travel. I was like, oh my gosh, it was him. This would be perfect. And I went to an in-person audition like 20 minutes from where I live. I think there were over like 1,500 girls at the audition. So insane.
Whoa.
Everybody's stunning, gorgeous. There were like 3 boys that came because boys can like audition as well.
What?
But yeah. Apparently the producers or whoever runs it were saying that they have to like go on the streets and find guys because guys don't apply. It's just tons of girls.
Wait, so they had men come and apply, but for future seasons? I mean, this show is.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was like, I would love if they went in that direction, and had men
I
and
know.
women on one season as suitors,
That would be
as
fun.
contestants. But so you applied.
So I applied. I think I waited there for like 3 hours just hanging out. Everybody's like all pretty. And you go and take one photo and just stand in line forever. And then you talk to somebody and you just sit there and they ask you like 3 questions and you have no time. And I was like, wait, like I have so much to tell you. Like my life is really cool. Like, let me tell you about me. I would be perfect. And they're just like, okay, yeah, that's good. And I was like, what the heck?
Wait, what are the
Um,
three questions?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's probably different from person to person, but it's like, what do you do? What do you do for fun? And like, why would you be good on The Bachelor? Like, it was just a few questions like that were
Yeah.
just, and I
And,
think like your relationship history.
and that's it. And then they send you on your way.
It was really short. Yeah. And I found out that apparently 60% of people are chosen from mail in audition. So, like, if you send in something like
Mm.
a video, versus 40% are chosen from the in-person ones, and there's so many people at the in-person ones. It was crazy.
So, what are you going to do next time to get on the show? Because clearly you need to be on the show.
So see if I this is my secret story, so hopefully I don't know. So one of my friends that's a guy that I've been friends with forever, the Bachelor people are like talking to him, like they want him to be on, and he like keeps getting interviews and stuff, and I like really low key just want to be like, oh, I've secretly been in love with him forever, and then like get on the show like that because they like when you know somebody. So that was
Yes.
gonna be my strategy, but
Okay.
now I can't do it because they would find this and everybody would hate me.
Yeah, they would all hate you. We can delete this out though. I want you to be on the show.
I
I'm
do
not.
too.
I
But
know
like you
this is
guys
just
have
not
said,
fair.
my brain is too mature for this, you
I
know?
know. I know because none of them coach themselves. I think Kelly's very mature, but everyone else is, and maybe Madison a little bit, but everyone
Right.
else, hot mess.
And
I
we
know.
see how that went with Kelly.
I know. She was just having too much fun.
She
She wasn't
was. And
serious enough.
I'm pissed about it. Like this is going to be a Lynn coaching Felicia session on all of the things that happened because like why is that bad that she's having fun?
I
Like she is
know.
me. I just see myself in her. So I was
I
like,
know.
that was rude.
It's very rude. Oh my gosh. Well, let's do the show recap. Let's get into so we can get to the coaching part. So the group goes to Lima, Peru, where Peter's going to make his final decisions on who he's going to keep and who he's going to go take to hometowns. Pretty sure he knew going into this what was going to happen, but I don't know. They needed to go through the whole song and dance. So he goes on a one-on-one with Madison where they go fishing. And then at night, Peter tells her that he's falling in love with her, which I don't know that he is supposed to do. I think that's a no-no. I don't know, Felicia. Did you feel that way?
I did. I was like, oh man. But Peter does a lot of no-nos, clearly.
Peter is
And
a
they like to
no-no.
highlight them. Yes. And I feel like the no-nos are just going to keep getting more.
He thinks the no-nos are going to get him to a yes, yes, and I don't think so.
That's right.
All right, so she gets a rose. He's gonna go to Auburn, where she's from. Then he goes on a date with Natasha, who also seems to manage her mind too much because they walk about town. They seem to have a good time, but at night, Peter tells her he's just not that into her. Most likely because she hasn't stirred up any drama, and then they haven't had any vulnerable moments over her being dramatic. She doesn't get a rose. She goes home. Next, he goes on a one-on-one with Kelsey, where they go four-wheeling, which I kind of have a hard time believing she's never been four-wheeling before because she's from Iowa. And I feel like that's just something you do in the Midwest. And being from the Midwest, I can say this. So I think, I don't know. She's been,
She might not want to get dirty. I feel like she's just the kind of girl that doesn't want to get dirty.
yeah, maybe so. She's like, I'm too pretty for this. I
Yeah.
don't need to wear a helmet hair. But, so they go four wheeling and they roll around in the grass. And then on the date portion, she tells him like all this stuff about potential drama with her family, where she's estranged from her father, but has been talking to him a little bit, but hasn't told her mom about it. Drama, drama, drama. Peter, of course, loves this and decides he needs to see for this in person at her hometown in Iowa. She gets a rose. Then we have this super awkward 3-on-1 group date with Kelly, Hannah Ann, and Victoria F. He takes all of them aside. Hannah Ann has written out a letter for Peter about Peter, what she likes about him. I'm pretty sure she probably put hearts over every single I. He goes on to Victoria F, who, like, as per usual, has a lot of insecurities to share with Peter. She has a lot in common with Peter, which we will talk about later. And then he talks to Kelly, who expresses, as we've said thus far, that she's just like having a fun time getting to know him. She's not somebody who caused a lot of drama. She doesn't see it as a problem. Peter thinks this is a huge problem that she just seems to want to have fun. Ultimately, he sends Kelly home. Huge mistake, I think. Huge. Anyway, though, hometowns are going to be next week, and he's going to go see Madison, Kelsey, Hannah Ann, and Victoria F's families. I'm looking forward to it, but I also think he made a mistake sending Kelly home because I liked her. So, anyway.
I feel like he's just like on the level of everybody else, though.
I
You
know.
know?
I know. And I'm just going to say this now, Felicia. I think that you're too good for him. So I'm glad you weren't on the show
Thank
because
you.
he also would have made this mistake with you. He would have sent you home.
It's true.
I
I'm
know.
just too amazing, like the other girls that he sent home.
I know.
We're saving me for a good one. Bachelor producers. I know they're going to be listening to this podcast, obviously.
Of course,
So
obviously. They'll be like, we
save a
need
good
that,
one for
Felicia.
me.
Exactly. So, shall we jump into these coachable moments? Are you
Yes.
ready? Okay,
Psh.
let's. Yes, we're going to have a nice sound effect. All right. So, yeah, we'll just do it here. We won't use
Well,
a sound effect.
I'll just do the sound effect for you.
Do it.
Coachable moments. I forget the whole thing. I don't memorized.
Next time. So, okay, so let's go into this first scene. Peter is talking to his mom via Skype, and he, of course, he's expressing again his biggest fear, which he keeps saying episode after episode, that his biggest fear is him going all in and committing. And at the end, that person feels for him, but maybe not in the same way. And that person walks away. And he is terrified about this. And he makes a lot of decisions based on this. So Peter is very worried about being blindsided, like completely, which, being blindsided, being caught in an unexpected position. But Peter kind of knows what this would be. Like, it's not, you can't really be blindsided if you already know what that future would look like. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. No, and I also noticed that his mom was saying, just follow your heart, which I don't know. I would have never thought about this before coaching, but it's so interesting because, his heart is telling him to follow the crazy girls because, right? Like that's what's exciting. That's what's fun. That's what he's doing. But I don't
Yeah,
know. I was just like, should he really
I
be
don't know.
following it feels like immediate gratification,
It
right? It
is.
feels like his like immediate satisfaction of these crazy girls and then it's like makeup sex.
It is like makeup sex. Yeah, it's like he like often seems to mistake somebody like in a puddle of tears for them being super vulnerable and open with him, and he sees all of those as a bonding moment. And so if somebody's not crying, he's very confused, which, actually my husband and I were talking this week and he was just like, "Yeah, have you seen like videos of his mom? She's like always crying." So when you grow up around somebody who expresses themselves through tears, it makes sense that he would gravitate toward a woman who expresses herself through tears. And it's not like it's not a bad thing at all. I just think you're muted. I just think uh he's not necessarily like seeing any deeper than that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because that totally like the way that he grew up will definitely affect how he sees that now and that if he believes that that's what love is and that's what connection is. It makes a lot of sense. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, he's been looking to the past to dictate what the future will look like. So he's like, I got burned by Hannah Brown. We're not going to let that happen again. And so he's trying to like find, it's like he's not looking for love. He's looking for the girl that won't leave him. That like
Yeah.
gets just close enough.
That's what it seems like and that's what he like almost keeps saying, right? Is that like I'm scared that I'm going to love her and she's not going to love me back, which is essentially what that is.
Yeah, which is I think what he's gonna create at the very end of this. He's gonna like somehow he's kind of been like attracting these like 4 women he's keeping along the way. But I think at some point something's going to happen where the person he really, really, really wants goes away.
It's what it seems like from these little teasers at the end, but they're tricky.
They're tricky.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's say you had a client. You can be the client in a minute if you want to be, but like you have a client who's just like always thinking that the worst is going to happen to them. Like, how do you talk them through this?
So I would first just bring them through what that is creating in their life so that they can see. Because I mean, that's what happens for me. That's what happens for all of our clients. We think that I have to think that this terrible thing is happening to prepare in case it actually does happen. But when we think that, we feel something really terrible. We feel scared. We feel embarrassed. We feel it's never a good feeling. And then from there, we go crazy, like a lot of the girls do, right? They like feel all these crazy things and then they act all crazy and then they create their worst possible scenario. And that's super helpful for me to just walk through with myself, with my clients, that, just that thought is what's creating all of the freak out and it's creating the exact thing that we don't want to happen. And it's not because of what's going on around us, it's just because we're creating it with our brain. So I think that's just super helpful to know that, to see exactly step by step what it's creating.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, that's exactly what Peter is creating for himself. He's creating these situations in which basically he's planted the idea of leaving and walking away in all of these women's minds and his own. Like,
Yeah.
instead of just being like, I'm going to find my person, like, there's no downside for him to just be like, you know what? I'm going to find my wife no matter what. And like, this process seems to work for some people. So, like, let's just go for it. But instead, he just like lives in this fear, like this shadow of fear that something bad's going to happen to him.
Yeah. And all the
Yeah.
girls do that too. Every single
Hmm.
one. They say, like McKenna, I just kept thinking about that. I was like, oh my gosh, you're creating this for yourself so bad right now.
Yeah.
The way that she would talk about how I'm not getting any attention, she would create no attention for herself. She would create no time for herself. And you can just so clearly see that like you're just getting these results by freaking out ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's like I just want to tell you.
Just PS, you don't have to do this. I know. And like, yeah, with my clients, I would just like go to the worst case scenario. Like, what is the worst that actually happens? And, like the way that we coach is like, okay, the worst that happens is a feeling. Okay, yeah, Peter, you might feel heartbroken. You might feel disappointed, but it's not because of what somebody else did, them walking away. It's just like, okay, well, here's an invitation to heartbreak. Welcome to being human. But that means that they weren't your person. It's totally fine. Now you have this opportunity to find somebody else who is. But when you live in fear of that feeling in the first place, your person might walk away anyway because you're not showing up as yourself.
Right. And I think a lot of people who don't coach would say the worst thing that could happen is Peter sends them home, right? And they're heartbroken and all these like circumstances, all of these actions are the worst thing that could happen. But the that's what they're creating as well. When they're thinking that, oh, he might send me home, then they're likely getting sent home, except for
Yeah,
Kelly.
except for Kelly. I Kelly, if you listen to this, Kelly, I love you. Yeah, I think what's interesting too is his other worst fear is that somebody's being fake with him, and then he gets to the end and they find out there's someone else, which I think is so fascinating because he always assumes the worst here too. He's like, if someone's being quote unquote fake with me, then I'm gonna find out that they're a person that I don't like at all. I'm like, or they might be fake with you and then you find out that you love the person they actually are. Like he's always just assuming something terrible is going to happen for him. Poor Peter.
Yeah. And I like your conversation earlier about like, what does fake even mean? I don't even I
Yeah,
don't even know. I
I
think if
know.
anybody I think if anybody put a camera on anybody, they're going to be a little bit different. Like that's just what happens, I think. Like me talking on the podcast is probably different how I'd be
Yeah,
talking to you if I knew it wasn't recorded, but I'm not trying to be. It's just
just something happens. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, lights, camera, action, which is probably why you didn't get selected for this season of The Bachelor because they put a camera on you and your true self couldn't shine out.
Exactly. That's what it was for sure.
Oh, Peter. Shall we move on to number two?
Yes. All right, I will take number 2. On each date, Peter and the women are becoming more future focused. So now that they're approaching hometowns, things are getting real for them. They're starting to discuss what their futures could look like.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that Peter was asking was, can you really see a future with me? And he was asking about a future family and just having them be really, really honest. And this is when Madison was saying that, um, sorry.
It's okay. We can edit this out. We don't have to read that part. I think this part is interesting because this feels like the first part where they're now actually talking about what, getting married, like what would that even look like? Because I think up until now, they've been like a little bit dancing around it. They've been talking about the drama on the show, a lot about their past relationships. And so now it's like this offer, this invitation from Peter, like, hey, let's talk about making babies. Let's talk about having a family, which is scary. Like, it's scary to get that part in a relationship. Would you agree?
Right. Even when it's only one person dating one person, it's been more than what, maybe 3 weeks that it's been in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it is such a big thing and there's probably so much that even talking about that they don't find out, like, oh, like what time do you wake up in the morning and what do you like to do? Like, do you watch TV? Those
Mhm.
little things that you just get to know somebody. So yeah, it was a big moment to switch that from talking about just right now to could this work out in the future?
Yeah, could this work out in the future? And so it's like, yeah, so it's like living in this possibility of what they could put together, like instead of defaulting to everything that has happened in the past for them. And so it is an interesting shift for Peter because he's so past focused. He's so looking at like the terrible things that happened in the past. I'm kind of
Yeah.
amazed he can actually look toward a future with any of them based on how he sees the world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think he's I feel like it's just so much in his head that it's hard. There's so much going on. There's so much drama. I wonder if he even has time to think about what's important and to, he probably doesn't even consider like, what do I want to get to know about them? What do I want to talk about until now, until
Yeah.
he could like finally breathe because it was just reacting to everything going on for so long. It's like, okay, like let's be intentional and let's ask something that I really want to know.
Yeah, let's ask him. Yeah. And like, does he even want to know those things? Because I think for Peter, he's so afraid that somebody's going to leave him. And so somebody brings up something that like maybe they don't align. Like, oh, I really want to go live in Alaska. That's my plan after this. If they were to bring it up or he were to bring it up, like the true things that they actually want in a relationship, then they would have to make that choice. Like, okay, clearly this isn't going to work out because you want 0 children and I want 12. And so I do wonder if there's even any part of this is like them being fully honest other than just saying, "Yes, I want a family."
Yeah, it's just easier not to know, especially at this stage. She only has, I mean, at the end of this episode, he only has 4 girls. So
I know.
don't
Only
want to find
4.
out anything
Only
bad.
4, Felicia.
This
Waiting
is,
for
is crazy.
I know it's crazy. I'm waiting for one of the bachelors just to be like, "I'm just going to keep dating all 4 of them." Maybe that's the crazy twist at the end of this one.
That's good. Maybe when I'm the bachelorette, I'll do that one.
Yes. Yeah, maybe you just skip to being the bachelorette right away.
That's a good idea.
I
Seems
know.
much better.
Yeah. And I think for this too is like a lot of these women have a leg up on Peter because they've been imagining a future with Peter since before the show started. I mean, you were imagining a life with Peter before the show started.
So super funny. I didn't even actually watch last season, but everybody was just like, Pilot Pete, he travels. You guys would be perfect. I was like, all right, yeah, he's cute. So
Noted.
I didn't even know too much, but I was like, he travels and he's cute. Sign me up. I'm in.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, yeah, because they've all spent the whole season envisioning being like future Mrs. Weber. And he's just like trying to remember how to tie his shoes.
Right.
Yeah. And
He's
like,
he's just trying to like not kill himself with this glass.
I know. I know. And so, like, yes, they're starting to look at their futures with a little bit of like turbulence on the way. But
Lots of
I
turbulence.
know. But I think it's interesting, to look at this from a life coaching perspective because we're all future focused. Like, we help our
Mhm.
clients see what they could create in the future. That's a big, big part of what we do. And so I think that's what's been interesting watching this show is like, okay, so here are people living into these selves that like who knows what they like. I think this is the biggest surprise for people on this show. They come on the show and they don't know what to expect. And all of them say they are affected by the experience at the end of it. Because
Yeah.
how could you prepare? How could you even prepare? And most of them say they grow from the experience. But
I don't know. And I was thinking about this week with like even my personal dating life that when you're put in that situation, it's like you're like the survival part of your brain probably turns on and you're like trying to get the prize. Like you're trying to get the dinner
mm,
and like that's all that your brain cares about. And I think there's so much scarcity, time scarcity, human scarcity, sex scarcity that it just becomes such a chase and such a prize that I think it would be hard not to become kind of obsessed with it. I think our brain would just want that so bad.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think even like in dating in general, that's what ramps up our feelings is when we're not getting that time and when, like the hard to get thing. Like this is like the extreme of hard to get. And I think it would be hard for these girls not to, for that to like kick in and it's almost like survival.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, because it's also the competition of it. Like, not just for Peter, but to get this rose to stay on the show, all the side benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am curious. So, are you single? You are single,
Oh
aren't
yeah.
you?
I
Yeah.
mean, talking about
I'm
Peter
afraid.
goo on your podcast.
No, but like, how does it affect you watching this show? Because I sometimes have like thoughts. Before I got married, I was like, should I have been dating like 30 people at once? Am I doing it wrong?
It makes me really excited. It kind of gives me hope seeing the way that Peter interacts with some of the girls. Um I don't know, just him being so sweet and so loving, and like there's lots of good things about him too, and about all the bachelors. So it's I kind of think of it like that way. I'm like, oh, like he's such a good guy. He likes these girls so much. He does, he's so cute with them. And then of course the dates. It's like woman porn. I think like looking at all the romance and the the dates that they go on, and traveling and going to a waterfall, and like legitimately the best date you could ever go
Ever.
on ever.
Yeah.
So,
Except for if you get set up to like go to a country show and your ex boyfriend is the one singing.
right, yeah. But like whose ex-boyfriend is Chase Rice? Like my gosh.
I know. She's got it bad, that one. So hard to
Yeah.
be Victoria. All right. Well, let's move on to number 3 in this very calm episode. So Peter takes Madison. What were we going to say?
We'll just talk about me instead of the episode.
We should. I know. I was like, I think your and my life have more drama in it right now than this episode did.
There was none.
There was
Well,
none. I know.
just a little bitty piece at the
There
end.
was like bonus drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so Madison takes so no, Peter takes Madison on their second one-on-one, and like so during that date, um Madison says that she like really needs to tell him something to make sure they're on the same page. And it turns out that she's like extraordinarily religious, which
I didn't know this.
I did not know she does not like she did not talk about it at all. And maybe she did and they just edited it out. But this is where we're finding out that she wants to find somebody who's just like her dad, essentially. And, somebody who will be the faith leader of her family, just like her dad.
And just like how Peter wants to find his crying mom.
Yeah. But she doesn't cry very much. I don't know if this is going to be compatible, but yeah. So Madison is just like faith is my whole life and all of who I am. In a marriage, I want someone who also has that relationship with the Lord and loves that about me and wants to raise a family in that way. And I want to know we're on the same page about that. So basically, she's just like, here is my deal breaker. Can you fit into this role that I really want in my relationship? And so, Peter. Peter essentially like responds to her that he was raised in a Christian household, but his faith could be stronger and he struggles, which I'm pretty sure he knew immediately. Like, this is not what Madison wants to hear. Did you get that sense?
Absolutely. And I think if Madison wasn't on a TV show, she'd be like, for sure, no. Like, I think this would be a hard pass for Madison.
Oh, yeah. Well, if she didn't meet him at church, right? I'm pretty sure like that's her dating pool. If this is what you're looking for, why wouldn't your dating pool be the church?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so I
Yeah,
think
like
in
with how
sensing that,
serious, sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
with how serious she is, I don't think if she met Peter and was dating Peter and they went on this date and he said what he said, I don't think, no matter what he said after he said, I'm not religious, I think it would have been over.
I think so too. Yeah, because I think if she would just like actually listen to the words and said, somebody saying, I feel like my faith could be stronger and I struggle with it. That's not where she's at all. And that's the type of shenanigans she probably wants to deal with because that would require her to be the strong one and she wants somebody else to be that person. So to make up for it right away, Peter says that he feels so good about her and he knows that he's falling in love with her.
Are they allowed? That was the no. He's not allowed to say that, is he?
I don't think so. Like, but I don't think Madison's the type to kiss and tell. Maybe he knows that too, that she's not going to go blob this to the other women. Who knows? Um, but I think he says that from that place of insecurity. I think he said it just to like keep stringing her along, like, oh crap, I just said what she didn't want me to say. Better tell her I fall in love with her, keep her around.
Totally. I think, yeah, I feel like he definitely had that insecurity of like, maybe I'm not what she's looking for.
Hmm.
And yeah, got to save it, got to make sure she stays. Because it seems to me like they have one of the strongest relationships. I'm Team Madison.
Yeah,
So,
I'm Team Madison too. They have a strong relationship, but um like I'm interested to see how Madison will handle this because this is one of her deal breakers right here. If Peter, and I think her dad's going to sniff it out, no doubt. And so, yeah, I think that
yeah.
would happen.
And I'm just so excited for the next episodes. Those little teasers that they give at the end, they
She's a
just get
virgin,
me.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I think here, like if Madison was my client and she came to me and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm falling in love with this guy too, but faith is super important to me." I would just like take a minute to just be like, "Okay, what were the words that he said?" Like those would be the facts. Those would be the
Yeah.
facts.
And I would ask her, like, what if you could have it all? Right? Because
Mm.
I feel like when we're dating, a lot of times it's like, oh, well, he's really great. Like, I've never found anybody as nice as him before. And you kind of get into that, like, this is probably as good as I could do. But, like, what if you could have it all? Like, would you really want Peter if you could have everything that you wanted in a partner?
Oh, that's so interesting. Do you think that way, like when you're dating?
Yes, which is why I don't date people.
What does it mean to have it all, do you think?
I mean, you get to decide what that means, right? I think we place these like limits on ourselves of, oh, we can have the guy that's either like really nice or really hot, right? Like we probably can't find a guy that's nice and hot. And stuff like that. We just decide like where we are. We decide how much money we can make and what job we can have and but like what if that wasn't true at all? You could
Mm.
have you could have all of it and there's no right like this is what all of it looks like because it's different for every single person. But I think once we decide that we can't have it all is when we stop getting the fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And for her, having it all would be finding somebody that fills that role that she seems to really, really want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too on this show, they set it up to be a fairy tale for anyone. But I think people forget that everyone has their own fairy tale, what the fairy tale is. And so they
Mm,
buy into what the show creates, but the show has a very distinct idea of what fairy tale is. And it
yes,
involves
like
a lot of
live
drama.
music.
Yeah.
Live music, drama, and traveling.
Totally. And so, but like her fairy tale is probably to meet somebody at church and like fall in love and just have it all work out. And they have their, 3.5 children or whatever. Um, yeah, I think it's important like to check in. Like she should have checked in with herself before deciding that this was the fairy tale ending. Like Peter said he loved her. She's starting to feel the feels too. It wasn't really that check in to
Yeah.
be like, wait a minute. He actually said he was struggling, isn't strong in faith. Maybe this doesn't line up.
Yeah. And I kind of hope that she doesn't just get swept away in wanting to win. And I hope she really goes back to that and, puts what she wants first and knows that she can have a guy just as amazing as Peter, if Peter's the most amazing thing, that she can have that who also like aligns with what she wants.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she was a basketball player, so the competitiveness, I think, is there. She was raised by her dad
Yeah.
to be competitive, so I think maybe he's kicking himself for this one.
Yeah. I don't know if it would last if she was the final one.
I know. But maybe she's the one that runs away and his mom cries about.
Maybe. Yeah,
Well,
that's true. I keep thinking that's Hannah, but who knows?
we're going to find out soon, I'm sure. 5 episodes away. Shall we move on to number 4?
Yes, number 4. You're great at these, so I would love for you to introduce
That's
it.
totally fine. So, okay, so Peter goes, I was the one that wrote them. It's in the brain. So Peter goes on this one-on-one date with Natasha, and before he goes on this date, he's just like, "Well, not that I want to compare other relationships, but it's a really good benchmark for me. I definitely don't want to close myself off to other women." So he goes on this basically being like, "Madison is my wife, so unless you wow me, she's my wife." Um, which doesn't exactly leave you open to other women as he thinks it would. Did you get that sense too? That like he was just kind of like, essentially, she's my wife, and all of you other ones are just, you know, just eye candy for a little bit longer.
Yeah, what happened to like being all in with the person that he's with.
Oh, that is gone. That has gone the way of whatever. Um, no, now Madison is the benchmark and everyone else is being compared to her, which doesn't help his relationship with Madison or any of the other women. Because if you're constantly like doing this contrast, you're like, is she better? Is she better? Oh, I like the way her hair looks. Oh, but she says she can cook. Like you're spending all that time going back and forth on the comparison trap.
Yeah. And then he's not being with the person that he's with, right? It's probably hard to focus and to find things that you like about one person when you're just thinking about how amazing somebody else is.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I run into a lot, like when I'm in a room of life coaches. Like, I don't know if you do this at like big events, you just scan around the room, like who's doing amazing and who's not.
Right.
And it just, I mean, I just feel like crap when I do that. I can't see how this makes Peter feel very good.
Right. And it doesn't produce anything productive either. It just makes you become more of what you don't want to be, right? Like when we're beating ourselves up, we're thinking, focusing on like the negative thing, like, oh, Madison's so amazing, but she like, but, all these negative things. That's what he's just going to keep looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And since we can't actually, like, I don't know, morph all these women together into one woman, like, there's no point in comparing them.
That'd be cool though, too.
That would be cool. It's like when you could change the Barbie heads on the Barbies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if he could just change the Barbie head, he could just
Hmm.
pick the body he liked and just switch out heads. And it'd be weird, but maybe basically where Peter's at this point. He's been playing dolls.
You're like, I like you, but just don't spill champagne all over your face. And
I like you, but if you could have just been in love before, that would be perfect for me. If you could have a little bit of relationship history.
yeah. If
I
you could
love
not have an ex boyfriend that's here.
if you could stop saying you have so much fun. Like right? Like just this like the way his brain is focused this whole season is just he's just always looking for the negative. He's always like trying to watch his own back, which I get. Like it's the survival thing that you've been talking about, but it's not what's going to find you a future. It's going to keep you like avoiding the arrows that are being thrown at you.
Yeah. And I think that's why that a lot of times we see that the person who gets the first impression rose is the person that wins. And I think that's because like initially the bachelor, the bachelorette, their brain is like, hey, like this person's amazing. This person could be my wife or husband. And I think their brain just is like, oh, okay, this person could be it. And that's what they're looking for in them. So
Mm,
that's probably such, that once your brain decides like, hey, this is the person, this is who I really liked on the first day, they're not even meaning to, but they just keep finding amazing things about that person. It was
yeah.
Hannah Ann, right?
It was Hannah Ann, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, how would somebody get around this? Because I think it's very natural as humans. Like, I think we're designed to compare to make sure that we're like fitting in socially and that we're not going to be ousted from the group. Like, how would you help somebody like get out of the comparison trap?
Yeah, I would say to just honestly the first thing you have to do is know that it's happening. Because a lot of times people don't even realize that, it's an optional thought. They're like, no, 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 they make more money, they're prettier, they this, they that. And it's just like it's facts. Like this is just what's happening going on around them. And they're just feeling terrible because of what's around them. So I think the first thing to do is just realize that everything that you're thinking about is completely optional and that your brain is doing this for a reason. It's doing this to protect you and to keep you safe. There's nothing wrong with you for doing it. It's just a human characteristic that your brain is working really, really well if you're comparing yourself to other people. And just knowing that all of that's optional and that you don't have to believe it. And again, just bringing you back to like, okay, but when you think that, like, how does it feel? What do you do? And how are you showing up? And what else can we practice? Like, how do you want to show up in that space?
Yeah. Yeah. And just being able to see each woman as an individual, not necessarily in comparison or contrast to another woman, or just, again, like you said, like noticing that you're doing it in the first place and just being like, okay, I hear what you're saying, brain, but I'm here with her on this date. So I'm just going to keep interacting with her and finding out new information about her and assuming that like this is, this is the experience that I'm going to have just with her. But I think it's hard.
Yeah, brains just do crazy stuff. They just stuff just pops up in there.
Yeah.
But
Unmanaged, they go wild.
yeah, I think that's one of the most valuable things that I learned is that you don't have to believe all that stuff that just keeps coming
Mm,
up.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if we wanted to talk about an episode of Girls Gone Wild in somebody's brain, I mean, Victoria F., who we should talk about next for sure.
Oh my gosh, yes. What were her quotes? Because she was like, "Oh, you're attacking me," and oh my gosh, I was
He's
like,
in
"You're
a mood.
attacking yourself."
Yes. Okay. So this will be coachable moment number 5. Yeah. So, oh my gosh. So every time I feel like Peter and Victoria F. interact, they just spin in the same conversation. And the problem is that they have a lot in common. They're both worried they're going to get to the end and the other person's going to leave them. And so Victoria's like, I know what I'll do. I'm going to leave first, which
Right.
she's not necessarily always aware of. But she is a little bit in this one. She's like, I think I'm kind of self sabotaging here because I'm afraid you're going to leave me at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, she had some good, there's some good here. Like, this is the only drama of the show that I could detect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was,
Besides the drama in my brain. Yes.
besides the one in your brain. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So I think the like key quote here is from Victoria, where she says, at the end of the day, I don't want to get to the end and lose you. So it's easier to just not have you in the first place.
Mm.
Uh, so she's just like willing to just like push Peter away or let him go without even trying because it would feel so terrible if she did try. She thinks it would feel so terrible if she did try and he decided she was not the one.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, I did this with my first boyfriend as well. I was so scared of breaking up because everybody says, oh, your first heartbreak is the worst and it's going to suck and it's going to be terrible. So I just created that for myself while I was still in a relationship, which is exactly what Victoria is doing. She's like, this potentially could suck later. So I'm just going to make sure I get the really bad suck right now before
Yeah.
anything even happens.
Yeah, because she thinks like at least it's in my control right now. This won't this is gonna feel a little bit better than it would at the end if it wasn't in my control.
Yeah.
And just the only thing that's different here is just how she's thinking about it.
Right. We just create the worst case scenario immediately.
Yeah, yeah, you fail ahead of time, which is essentially what she's doing. She's like, okay, I'm just going to set up this situation where I'm going to be rejected so that he doesn't reject me.
Yeah. And the other things that she was saying too was, she was like, I'm already pissed off before she even saw him, right? Like it wasn't even, nothing even happened. She was just creating pissed off in her head. And she was saying like, oh, I just feel like, what'd she say? I feel like you're attacking me. But it made her attack him. And I think this whole time she's just attacking herself in the way that she's freaking out about herself and doubting herself and their relationship. And she thinks that it's him that's doing attacking, but it's all her attacking herself.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's so interesting because you'll see like after the show, sometimes they'll have different like interviews with different women on the show, and they'll be like, the show makes you do terrible things. The show does terrible things to you. And when you look at the experiences of all the women on the show, like they all are in the same situation, they all have the same circumstances dating one guy. And if the show was actually being terrible to them and making terrible things happen, then all of them would have the same experience and all of them would be signing the protest and the forms and the petition to like have the show outlawed. But that's not true. I mean, like all of this seems to me like self-inflicted by Victoria. Like, did the producers set her up in some way, shape, or form along the way? 100%. Did they offer her thoughts that like then got to her head? Yeah, totally. But at the end of the day, she's creating this experience for herself. Yeah.
Right. She's creating the pissed off frustration freak out, and Kelly's having fun. Right. But they're in the same, I mean, we could say Kelly's even in a worse situation than she is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still chilling, having fun. I'm going to lay down. See you later.
I'm gonna take a nap here, people. Yeah, totally. She's having fun, like kind of looking at the other girls, going, "She's a hot mess, and she's a hot mess."
So,
Yeah.
question for you, why did Kelly not create her own results? If her thoughts were so like, I've got this, like, this is totally fine, I'm having fun, why do you think that she went home?
Mm. I don't think that she was all in on the process like Peter wanted her to be. I don't think I think she was like, "Hey, it's cool if he picks me. It's cool if he doesn't. There's a many fish in the sea." I think for a lot of the women on this show, because I've been thinking about this too, is it's Peter or nothing. Peter, or I'm going to be devastated. Peter, this is terrible. And I think for Kelly, she's like, yeah, it could be Peter, or there's a hot producer over there, or there's this guy over here. I think for her, she's just open minded and she's treating it like an actual dating experience where she's just like, I don't need you to tell me I'm awesome to know I'm awesome. I already know I'm awesome. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I agree because I was thinking about that too because I was like watching it and I was like, oh yeah, she's creating her own results. She's got this. And then she didn't. And I was like, okay, why is that? And I think it's just because she wasn't there. Like, I am here to find a husband, right? Like, and that's what Peter, like, that's what the result would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what he wanted. And I think she did create like having fun and a good experience and all of that. But I think what she wanted might not have been what Peter wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she was just like, oh, this is just how I date. And I'm not going to change the way I date just because I'm a show with all these other elements. We get to know each other. We have fun. This is how you date. And then at the end, we want to be together. Cool. Like, this
Because
is why
what's the point if you're not having fun? Is my
I
question.
know. I mean, those were the questions I would ask myself when I was dating. Just like,
Yeah.
oh, did I have a good time? Do I want to see this person again? And there was so many times where I was like, yeah, yeah, I had a good time. But then when I asked myself if I wanted to see them again, it was like kind of a no. Like you kind of just know. And I think for Kelly, it was like she was met him before the show started. She was like, oh, did I enjoy meeting him? Yeah. Would I want to see him again? Yeah, totally. Oh, the avenue is through this show. All right, bring it on. Let's just see what craziness this brings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of the other women on this show, they need Peter to pick them so that they feel good about themselves. And Kelly already feels good about herself. So she doesn't need that external validation in the way that Peter and the rest of the girls kind of seem to need from each other.
Totally. And this is an old episode, but I love how McKenna left. And I hope that, that was real. And she really did feel that way of her. Like when she left, she was like, I'm amazing. And I was like, oh, that's good. I'm glad you think that now.
I had some different thoughts on that, but if obviously those were just my thoughts, but if she did actually legitimately feel that way,
I hope
like,
she
good for
did.
her. I hope she did too. I mean, I would hope for anybody because I'm always like a little heartbroken for them when they leave and they're like, well, this means I'm not good enough. This means I'm not good enough. Oh, what
Human
a bummer for
brains.
them. Human brains, I know. And so, ultimately, as I've already said many times, unfortunately, Kelly does not get the rose. Victoria F does. And Hannah Ann does. And that's how the show ends.
And I'm pissed.
Right? Are you really pissed?
It was just about Victoria. Yeah, Victoria. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder how much we don't see.
A lot. My guess. A lot. So that's our 5 moments from a very lackluster episode. I think we did good trying to find something to coach on here.
Oh yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, super fun. So if
Oh no,
somebody,
not too fun though.
not too fun. So if somebody wanted to not have not fun with you as their coach, Felicia, where would they go to find you?
Yes. So I have a podcast as well. It is called Abs Are Made in the Mind. Instagram, Abs Are Made in the Mind. And I also have a personal one where you could see all of my fun travel things. And my name is Felicia Anna Broccolo. Good luck finding it. Um, but that is my name. And yeah, that is also where the Bachelor producers can find me.
Yes, and they should. And yes, if you want to live vicariously through Felicia, definitely go check out any of her Instagrams because, she's amazing. So thank you for coming on the show, Felicia.
Thank you. And until then, I will be in Lima finding the Peter goo.
Gross. Yay.